checking in with your camera. It was great to see you. Where's my friend Laz? I just saw him. Oh, hey, Jessica. How are you? Hey, Gay. Good morning.
Good. Good morning. I had to get my daughter
Morning.
all set up.
Good. Perfect. Gay,
I've got
I
the same
loved
hair as you right now.
Oh, yeah. The wet hair bun, aka
Yeah.
the like COVID casual. For sure. Gay, I loved your joke for the comedy for a cause, the asking Alexa part.
That was a great thing. I loved Lockie's piece. That was classic.
She has such a good voice. She's actually like a classically trained opera is her, but she can like just belt it out. And so I was so grateful that she
I loved it.
took us up on it. Yeah. Thank you for submitting.
Remind me again, how much did we make?
Over $20,000.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
I know. That was like, so initially we started with a goal of 10,000, and then we got close to that and we're like, you know what? We're feeling good. Let's bump it up to 15. So we bumped it to 15, and then we inched close to that, and then we're like, you know what? Let's go for 20. And so when the actual comedy show ended, we were at like 20,700 or something, and I was like literally doing this like happy dance. Just so excited that we hit goal. So thanks to everyone who contributed, participated, submitted, like the whole 9 yards.
Amber, have you ever tabulated the total amount of money that Platinum Top 50 has raised for the Austin and the San Antonio community? I'll bet it's millions.
Well, you know what? Through our fundraisers alone, so like through the fashion show that we did for 5 years and then the 2 comedy shows, it's over 100,000 in each market, but we haven't been able to tabulate like the contribution that our members make individually, like to other places. But, you know, it's something that we're going to get better at being able to communicate that story, because a big part of Platinum Top 50 is the philanthropy and the giving. And that's a story that we want to be able to tell better. So
I think that would be I think that would be a very impressive statistic.
Yeah, no, I agree. And really just a testament to our membership. So while more people are coming in, we've still got a few people in the waiting room. We are working to bring in. So give us just a couple minutes to do that. Like I said earlier, for anyone who wants to check in and say hi, this is kind of a cool meeting format where you can scroll through. I'm at 3 pages now, and check out all the other folks that are on the call. And then when we get started, Ashley, who is to my left on my screen, is going to deliver us this awesome presentation. So Ashley, say hi to our folks just while we're waiting.
Hi.
Are you nervous?
I was telling Amber, I'm not nervous, but I completely did not prep the PowerPoint as well as I wanted to. And so I'm like, I got the goods, which is my knowledge, right? I got that for you. I came with that, but the PowerPoint, you know, it's the basics, cut and paste kind of thing. So that's what I was frantically doing this morning. And I just got a new puppy. And so and the puppy's biting my little toes and like yapping at me. And I'm like, I hear ya, but I'm hear ya, but I'm doing something.
Well, your knowledge base is the goods. I promise you. I have, I'm like queen of like crappy slides, but like good presentation. So, you know, if anything, this group is definitely used to that. So, hey, Julie. Hi, Sherry. Thank y'all for turning on your cameras and saying hi. So good to see you guys. All right, y'all, let's kick this off. I said we'd go to till 10:05 rather. So again, kind of a different format for us. We're trying something new, and I appreciate you guys being with us on this new adventure, and Ashley for letting us try this. So we wanted to try to create something that felt a little bit more personable than a webinar. And so this is a meeting format, where, as you can see, if you scroll to your right, you can see everybody else who's on the call. A few little housekeeping items to kind of talk through how to make this user experience the best for you that we've put together is in just a minute. I'll ask everyone to turn off your cameras. So most of you have it off, some of you have it on. So if you guys want to go ahead and turn off your cameras and then mute yourself. That way, if the lawn man, you know, starts to come up and, you know, do his thing, or your puppy's biting at you, or your kids, whatever it is. In this format, if your mic was on, you could hear everyone. So if you want to turn off your video, turn off your microphone, mute yourself. I want to point out the chat feature at the bottom though. So I'm going to come on and I am going to send everyone in the meeting. I'm going to say hi. Okay, so hi. What's cool about a meeting is you can send a message to everyone at the group, or you can send a message to just one person. So again, I can see that Jeremy's on the call, Lisa, Molly, Janet, Debbie, Julie, Tamara. Like, I could send you guys personal messages. Hey, Kathy. Or you can send me one. So to help kind of moderate through this Q&A that we want to get to at the end, because Ashley truly, y'all, is a wealth of knowledge. And like, I just love that, like, she's a female CEO and that girl can tell you where the load-bearing beams are and can like take a sledgehammer to any remodel like the best of them. So certainly you guys are going to have some great Q&A. So as those start to come up through her presentation, use that chat function to either send me a direct message or send it to the group. It doesn't matter. Yep, I see everyone saying hi. So that's awesome. So Ashley is, as you guys probably know, the CEO of Simply Sold Home Renovations. And she has put together a presentation for us titled The Simple Answers to Home Renovations. So Ashley, I am going to officially turn it over to you. So again, I think everyone's turned their video off, turned their mics off. We are going to spotlight you, and if you will introduce yourself more formally than I just did, and then screen share your presentation, and let's kick this party off.
Yeah, let's hit it, y'all. So good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. I spent quite a bit of time putting together all my thoughts for you guys, because I have, over the 7 years that I've started Simply Sold and been running it, I've realized I have so much information inside my noggin that would be so beneficial to you guys. And I'm sure some of this will be things that you already know, and maybe it's just a refresher for you or a reminder. But that's great. I hope I can bring it back to the top of your memory, and that you get to walk away and feel even more prepared for your clients. And you can feel like, oh, I remember Ashley talked about this specifically. I can actually email her about this, or I know I can send my client to such and such vendor for this. Anyways, I just want to make sure that you guys feel like you know what you're talking about when clients bring up these questions with you and you're like, oh, I don't know, this isn't like, I'm a realtor, this isn't my field, right? I'm not a general contractor. I don't do this every single day. But you see a lot of the same things that I do. And so we have that like unique connection that I'm like, oh wait, we all see these like weird things in houses all the time. So quick intro background about me is that I started Simply Sold in 2013, and I had no idea what I was doing, right? Like, just like we all do, we all like leap into something and we're like, well, let's see what happens. I was working with a family friend, and he's a realtor, and he gave me the opportunity to work with his clients for make-readies. And he said, you know, we needed this one-stop shop kind of person who could come in for make-readies and make it really, really simple for his clients and just get it all done, right? Like, I don't want to call the 10 people. I don't want to deal with paying them. I don't really care about these paint colors. I don't know. So like, you got it. I trust you. Let's try this out. So I spent all summer of 2013 really like working with only his clients, and it ended up being a hit, and people really wanted us to come back to their new homes. Words, you know, traveled pretty quickly. I know working with realtors, once you get in, then it's easier, but being a newbie, it's sometimes hard to like get your foot in the door. So anyways, hit it off. Here we are 7 years later. We do any type of home remodeling or anything that involves a home. It's not as beneficial to bring us in when, you know, you have a few handyman items or like a few landscaping items, things like that. It's super beneficial when you have like 4 or 5 parties that you all, or 4 or 5 projects or vendors that you need to bring in. And then you're like, oh, I need Ashley or I need Simply Sold for something like this. We're female focused. We are female owned and operated. And there's about 10 of us on my staff right now, all managing projects. It's just, the whole goal is to keep things really simple for the client and to make the experience as lightweight and trustworthy as possible, right? So that's a little bit about me. So let's dive in here. I'll quit talking about myself. It's just so easy to do. So let's see, I need to screen share. Okay, Amber, can we see? Thumbs up, all right, great. So, oh, I do this every time. I wanna share it with you guys, but I need to present. How do I make this go away? There we go. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, let me see if I can move this down. Okay, so we're gonna talk about top 5 questions. As Amber mentioned, please write your questions in the chat so that I can answer them and get specific with you guys. This is scheduled time directly with me, so I'm happy to answer any questions with you. So let's see here. The first question that the first big question people always come and ask me is cost to renovate, right? Famous question. So when you're working with home buyers, I put together some rough ballparks based on all the kitchen remodels we've done. There's 2 ways to look at this with kitchens. So you have the layout that's staying the same, and then you have a layout that's changing. These are for like small to medium sized kitchens, and these don't include materials like cosmetic, like fixtures, cabinets, things like that. These are just labor and like construction materials. We're a little bit different that we don't include those things in our bids. And that's good because you don't want the contractor marking that up and then just paying that as well. So this is like down to the basics. As you can see, you always have prep, you have demo, you have haul off, you have all these things that are part of a kitchen remodel. There's so many components and so many trips back and forth. And those are usually when the layout stays the same, that's about 25 to 28,000. I'm sure you guys have noticed, but costs have definitely gone up over the last couple of years for these types of projects and for specialists. Changing the layout, it's closer to 30 to 35, depending on what they're doing. So what I mean about changing the layout, that means like, are you moving the sink across the kitchen? Are you moving the oven and it's gas and it's not a simple like electrical hookup? Are you moving, well, really, I guess those are the 2 things, but are you moving like walls? I put the engineer in here as well. The engineer time, moving walls, noting that on plans, if we have to permit, all those things, those just add a lot of extra time and costs to a project. So keep that in mind with clients when they're buying a home. If they're like, okay, what is this going to cost to just refresh the same layout versus moving everything around? The next one is master bathroom. So you're spending about, clients are spending about 20 to 24,000 right now for a master bathroom. And that's just a simple master bathroom update, right? That's not changing the layout, or if they wanted to add a bathtub, or if it's a larger bathroom in general and they're wanting to do like specific custom things. Like a lot of what we've been seeing is adding a freestanding bathtub. You always have to trench for that, right? We always have to move water and drain lines. Same thing with like tile on the walls. If we're doing a whole wall of tile, that's very, very different than just tiling a shower. Vanities, for instance, if we're adding a second vanity, or if we're adding a second sink, I meant, on the same vanity wall, you have to add cost for plumbing there. And there's always drywall work when we're doing renovations. So that's something that a lot of people don't think about. When you demo out something, there's a ton of drywall involved. And it's not like you can just put in a tiny little piece of drywall and patch it in necessarily, because when you're demoing, some drywall doesn't look as good as the other, and as the other areas, and you typically just want to replace like the whole sheet of drywall because it'll look better and it's frankly easier for us. So that's something to consider. Something else that we've been asked a lot recently that I didn't put in here is like floating of walls. I know you guys know about this like horrendous Texas texture, but floating of walls is actually a pretty costly ordeal to get rid of texture. So most people that we've quoted for that service to either sand down the texture to just make it look less or to float it all out, most people honestly haven't gone through with it because, you know, the number just doesn't make sense to them and the return isn't always there. But people typically just like to know and put that in their back pocket, like, okay, if I really can't stand this texture, at least I know how much it costs. So that's something to consider as well. Moving on, big red flags when purchasing. So this is something I'm sure you guys are familiar with. You see this all the time. Foundation cracks are something to be noteworthy of. If you're seeing drywall cracks that aren't just like a seam, whether it's a tape seam or a seam with the actual piece of drywall, foundation cracks are scary because, as we all know, fixing a foundation is probably the most costly thing that you would ever have to fix when buying a home. Cast iron plumbing is probably the next one. And then upgrading the electrical service. Say there's an old box or those older homes that have those wires running directly to the house. And if it's running like connecting to the roof and it needs to be lifted up with, actually a lot of times those houses, their electrical the electrical service needs to be lifted up off the roof. So those are kind of the order of events that I think of like seriousness of things that we're finding. I actually have a friend who is going through the same thing that we're renovating. She has to fix the foundation. She had to fix all the cast iron pipes, which is a great thing to do when you're already fixing the foundation. And then same thing with the panel. One thing to note though, when you're replacing that service is that the city is like, I want to say 4 to 8 weeks out. No, maybe it was more than that right now. If it's an occupied home, from having them come out to disconnect, you know, our electrician will come in and replace everything and then reconnect it all within the same day. As well as if it's vacant, they can actually do it within 10 to 14 days, but then the house doesn't have power for 10 to 14 days. Anyways, needless to say, you want a GC or somebody who has this knowledge, bringing an electrician out so that they can tell you, you know, how long is this going to take and how much of an inconvenience is this going to be. You always look for older systems, right? Like the HVAC unit, the condenser outside versus the furnace in the attic. The furnace is actually a very scary thing if it's really old, because if it's connected to gas, you don't want your client in that danger of like, if there could be a gas leak. It's one thing to leave your condenser out there and like have it run forever until it dies, or until Freon is forever gone. But that's something to really pay attention to. We all know water heaters are like, you know, $1,000 to $2,000. If they're going tankless, it's more expensive because they have to have electrical added. You have to mount that somewhere in the house they want it, but it's super convenient in that it's tiny and you can put it anywhere on the house. So if there's a closet that they need, get rid of the water heater and let's switch to tankless. The other thing to note is drainage issues. We've seen a ton of that coming up with new home buyers, especially with Austin weather conditions switching around. That's just something to note, is if there's like water getting in the house or if it's flowing oddly, they need to do French drains, things like this. If there's water leaks covered up, that's a big deal. Mold, and then DIY work. I think DIY work is scarier because you you have no idea what they did. We've seen a ton of homes where they're like, oh, I don't know, the past homeowner did that, and based on other things they did, I just like, it can't be trusted, and I'm kind of nervous to open up the walls. So anyways, if you know the seller or anyone before that did some DIY work, it's always good to get checked out, because we've seen some pretty scary things. Wires left just like everywhere in the attic. They're not placed in junction boxes. It's a fire hazard. Inspection report items. This is going into more detail with what we were just talking about. So there's easy things, cosmetic repairs that you guys know about, drywall. That's pretty easy. A lot of times we can touch up and match paint. Sometimes we can't, it's risky. Small ticket items like those anti-tilt devices on ovens, adding GFCI, a lot of those things are pretty easy. The only things to note that are more big ticket items are like electrical, if there's no grounding, if you need to add breakers, if the panel is too small. Same thing with plumbing, if there's like a leak in the wall, or if there's fixtures that are, not working. Because plumbing, you can't really just swap out like a shower head and it will go away. It's like in the wall. And sometimes you can access it from the drywall behind the shower if that's possible. So there's always solutions, right? It just depends on what it is. I put simple, cost-effective items. So that's a lot of C's there. I got over eager. But like replacing fogged glass, that's super simple. We can leave the window frame and replace the glass. Adding attic insulation, we can add bats, we can do the blown in. You can do the foam, but one thing you have to think about is like the amount of airflow still circulating. So there's a few things to add. If you're doing foam and getting super energy efficient, we need to make sure they have the correct airflow in the attic in general. And I was gonna offer for you guys that are on the call, if you ever have a question and you wanna send me like 5 to 10 items from the inspection report list, you can email me and I'll get back with you in a couple of days. Just make sure it's not like the day before. But you can email me and I'll help you sort through like what's gonna be a big ticket item and what won't be. And I like to recommend, if you guys are doing an inspection report day with your clients and you know they're questionable things, just go ahead and take, an electrician, a plumber, an HVAC person, like take them out there that day and let them look at it, so you can be relieved if it's simple or if it's, something more complicated. And then how to update a home. So this is fun, right? Get organized is my greatest advice for you and your clients. These are questions that I would pass on to them to ask themselves. What am I trying to accomplish? What's my budget? Do I need a GC? What do I want to feel throughout this process, and what's important to me? So all these things will kind of get them in line with like where they want to be, because sometimes people will call us and they'll be like, well, I don't really know, and I've never done this and I don't really know. And that's totally fine. We are here to like guide them and help them. But if you're talking to them and they have no idea of like, what their budget is, these are all things that they really want to map out before they start talking to someone like us, because really only they know what their budget is and what they're going for. So things to consider, clients will either go big or they'll go in phases. And it's totally normal to like do a kitchen remodel and then do a bathroom later. We typically talk about what their wants and needs are for the future so that we're not backtracking, because I don't want to update a kitchen and say we do flooring in there, but then it doesn't mesh with the flooring that they want to eventually replace throughout the rest of the house. So there are just things like that we want to think through and make sure we're never backtracking when we do phase 1, 2, or 3. And starting a Pinterest board, always get that inspiration, look down, know where you want to go, know what your style is. If they don't know, always contact a designer, or we have designers that we work with, but they can help sort through all your brain spazzes and figure out like what exactly you want. So there's so many cost saving tricks when it comes to a remodel that I think a lot of people don't realize. And one of the biggest ones is custom cabinets versus prefab. So we work with some wholesalers that provide semi-custom prefab cabinets. And what that means is with clients, we want to make sure they understand that they're limited on colors and they're limited on like styles. But overall, this saves a ton of money because they come painted. You're not having to pay a painter on top of a carpenter. And custom is really only for like specific homes in a specific price range. And it's also only for like really odd shaped, oh, there's a little email message. Don't mind that. But it's only really for like custom areas. If you have a really weird angled kitchen or a strangely put together bathroom that you're like, how do I capture all this space and make it really functional? That's the only time I would really go custom, because we have tons of options with manufacturers these days. And let's talk timeline. So COVID has affected timelines a little bit, as I'm sure you guys are all aware. It's delays with materials. Everybody's renovating. Every homeowner wants to renovate. Every person's doing DIY stuff. So there are delays. That's one thing that we really tell clients right now is like, get on top of your materials and we can help you get on top of that. There's one of our other projects. But get on top of that so that you don't have to experience these delays. You really don't want to start your remodel project until you have all materials ready to go. Full speed ahead, right? You just want to keep going. You don't want those materials to stop you, because there's so many other factors that can stop you in a remodel, and that is one we can control. The final thing to note, if you have a client that's maybe doing the remodel on their own or with a GC or with us, always have them start a materials spreadsheet to budget out what they're spending, how much of it they need, where they ordered it from, when it's arriving. There's so many factors when it comes to materials that they just don't realize when they dive into it. And that will save them a lot of stress and like overwhelming feelings about this. The other thing to note is changing the layout, which we talked about earlier, always adds 25 to 35% of a remodel. So just note that it adds a lot. So if there's a way to avoid it, great. If the client wants to do it, also great. It's just something to note. I won't go into this in too much detail. We kind of talked about the panel earlier. Make sure your client has enough space in their panel, or look to see if it's tapped out. That means it's full, and we can't add any breakers if we were to change up, change up the electrical in the house, add new appliances, things like that. We talked about knowing what's behind the walls. There's always going to be a surprise, right? Whether it's termites, wood rot, something with the plumbing pipe, say there's weird electrical wires that need to be like fixed up. And then permits can add 1.5 to 2 months to a project. If it's not a same day electrical permit, which we can talk about more. But that adds a lot of time, getting CAD drawings, having the structural engineer, finalizing things, and then getting it submitted. The city is 4 to 6 weeks right now for just a building permit. And it also adds costs. What to expect when expecting, that's a little joke we have about your bank account, your mental headspace, and your personal space. It's really invasive. And then this is the last slide, how to get educated and trust the process. A lot of this is what we talked about, consider talking to a contractor about what's actually feasible for the space, and consider how much you'll spend on materials, because that's one area you can really dictate costs. You don't want to take a shortcut when it comes to plumbing and electrical and things that really matter, because it will show up on the end result, there's a finished product of ours, and that is all. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Ashley, that's great. And we definitely have some questions to get to. I have some myself, but let me get to those that came in through the chat. So for anyone that wants to unvideo themselves, feel free to also. Okay, so starting, Miriam wanted to know the prices that you listed on your first few slides. Was that kind of, what size house did you have in mind when you were giving that size of a price range?
Yeah, so small to medium could be like a, 1,000 to 1,400 square foot house to up to maybe like a 2,000 square foot house, maybe 2,500. I know all kitchen sizes and master bathrooms they're all so different. But I'd say a small to medium size kitchen and bathroom, nothing that is a very large bathroom where you walk in and you're like, whoa, yes, this is amazing. Like, that's how I compared it.
Okay, that's perfect. And Jennifer wanted to know, do you need to pull permits if the layout is staying the same?
Amber, did you say if the layout's staying the same?
Yeah, sorry, did I cut out? Yeah, if the layout's staying the same, are you required to pull permits?
Yes. Well, yes and no. So if the plumbing fixtures are staying in the same spot, then you don't need to pull permits. If we're just doing like replacing of the tile, updating the vanity, anything cosmetic that we're not moving electrical or plumbing, then no, we don't need to. If we are moving electrical, we can get away with just pulling an electrical permit rather than a building permit. I was actually just talking with an inspector yesterday about this because the city has some gray areas with their same day permits. Because same day permits can be a permit that you pull literally the same day. There's no wait, which you would think would be great, except that they're 2 weeks behind for same day permits. So it's actually a 2-week permit. And some of those things include, simple updates to a bathroom, like if you're switching from a shower to a tub, but the plumbing's staying in the same spot. I can actually send out more information on that too, just to help you get more familiar with permits and like what that looks like.
Awesome. So speaking of inspection, great lead into Heather's question, which was, how do you feel about pre-inspections for listings? Do you need to address all the issues, and does that adjust the price?
I actually love pre-inspections for listings because I'm one to just be proactive about like, let's nip it in the bud. They're probably going to find it, right? They're probably going to bring in an inspector and find it. Depending on what you do, if it's deferred maintenance, I don't personally think that raises the price of a house. I think it's just deferred maintenance that you need to do to sell the house. Painting, refresh things. I've been told working with other realtors and stagers that also doesn't necessarily change the price a whole lot. But if you're doing other things like actually making updates to the home, maybe making like switching out fixtures, doorknobs, things like that, that will make the house, it'll just make the house sell quicker, potentially. I mean, I know we're in a really hot market, so.
Well, so Heather, on that note, in my past life, I worked for an inspection company only because my dad has been a real estate inspector since like 1983. So I grew up like the daughter of an entrepreneur inspector, right? So before Platinum Top 50, I worked for his business. Having said that, he felt super strongly about pre-inspections, if for nothing else, just all of those little things that they write up, like the GFC or the this or that if you just go and get those cleaned up before they come in with their inspection, that report just looks so much cleaner, right? Because they have to write up all these little nitpicky things that if you go and change the air filters and like really cleans that up. So he was a big proponent of it too. And then like Ashley said, just kind of laying it out there and being transparent from the beginning. So for whatever my technical advice is worth to anyone out there, I'll put it there. Jennifer has a question. Can foam, I believe this is foam insulation in the attic, can that hide roof leaks?
Can it hide roof leaks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess technically it would hide a roof leak if there was like evidence of the water damage, like on the actual decking. Yeah, it would technically, if you added it, it would technically hide a roof leak. But at the same time, if an inspector goes on the roof and looks and sees that there's something weird with the shingles or the flashing, then not necessarily.
Tamara Nelson wrote in. She says, when taking out a low bearing wall, do you have to put a beam up, or is there like a less expensive alternative?
There are lots of alternatives actually. But yes, anytime you take out a load bearing wall, you always have to add something else there. And you don't always get the, what is the word I'm trying to think of? You don't always get the joy of putting a load bearing wall or a load bearing beam that's recessed into the ceiling, because there might not be space in the ceiling for it. So sometimes it has to be hanging, right? Like it can take up head space from the ceiling. And then other times, depending on how wide the wall is, you might have to actually bump out an electrical. You might actually have to bump out an exterior wall to hold, like if the exterior wall's here and you're taking out this wall, you might have to have a beam that's kind of lower, and then you might have to bump out the exterior wall to hold it. Some people have to put posts. I think we're about to post about a project we did on our Instagram that you'll see. There's a post in the middle of the kitchen. We took out two like corner walls. I don't know how to show my hands, but we took out two walls going this way and created this island for the living room. And we had to put a post in the middle because there was no way to hold both of those walls just with a beam. What was the second part of that question?
Well, just, are there any less expensive alternatives? But I mean, I don't know. As someone who's gone through a couple of remodels myself, I mean, those are always the ones when you get in and you're like, wait, what? I have to leave something in the middle. But then you end up living in it and you just like, it becomes a part of like the house, right? Like, I don't know that there's anything you can do about it unless you want like your second floor to fall in on you, which you don't. Yeah, that's a no-go, right? So Ashley, Debbie Phillips wants to know, for your services, do you charge a flat fee? Or yes, I know. Hi, Debbie. Flat fee, or is it a percentage of the job cost? Like, how does your company handle that?
Yeah, so make-readies are different. We actually have a totally different department. It's a different service. It's a different project supervision fee. When it comes to remodels, like home buyer or general remodels, we have an 8% project supervision fee, and make-readies, we have a 5% project supervision fee. And then just how we make our money is really like contracting lower rates with our vendors, because we give them such a substantial volume of business, we just pay a lower rate. I'm trying to think of an example. Like for instance, like our CAD person that we have either on staff or outsourced, they give us this extremely low rate because we have the relationship, we're easy to work with, I think we're easy to work with, but he doesn't have to deal with worrying about payment, harassing the person. So anyways, they give us really good deals and we just mark that back up.
That makes a lot of sense. So on your fees, are you that 8% or 5% does include materials or does not include materials?
No materials.
And let me just say, like, I was holding my breath hoping you would say that, because when we completely gutted and remodeled our home, the first architect that then had a remodeling company had like an 8% on it, but it included the materials. And then when Kelly's husband came in to give us a bid, he was like, no, you're not going to pay me for materials. And like, we were then able to literally like redo 2 more bathrooms and something else because that wasn't factored into that percentage. So you're really just charging for the service, which is super cool for your clients. So thanks for clearing that up. And the idea that you're able to negotiate good rates, it's just like a wedding planner. Like people pay a wedding planner because they can get cheaper flowers, cheaper this or that, because they have these vendors they work with all the time. So I think that's a great way to look at it. Speaking of vendors, Jennifer wants to know, are yours licensed and bonded? And talk to us about your arrangement with them. Some of them on staff, some not. How does that work?
Oh yes, definitely licensed and bonded. I learned that really early on, the hard way. And I'm sure, I mean, just being totally transparent, like I remember I used an electrician really early on when I was following these guys around, like, what are you doing? What's happening? And he had left some wires in an attic. And I was like, wait, what, like, why did you leave those wires there? Anyways, he was not the licensed master electrician, right? He's like the journeyman. So long story short, I learned very early on, I don't mess, I would say a bad word, but I don't mess with electrical. I don't mess with water or HVAC. All of those are all licensed all the time. And then when it comes to vendors, you know, a lot of them are subs and some of them are on staff. So we have like handyman carpenters on staff and then like quality control guys, because nobody likes that dirty job site. Mm-mm. It's not cute. It's not cute.
Yeah, no, not cute at all. You're like, this is my house. Why is there like soda bottles and taco wrappers everywhere? Like, I love that you, and I don't want to just like say that like, oh, that's a woman's touch, but I love that you come in and look at it from, if our client's going to walk through the door, we want this job site, even though it's a work in progress, to still look and reflect nice. It's their house. We want to put that forward. And I just love that you pay attention to that detail. I have a question. So you talked earlier about savings costs for cabinets, which was awesome. What's your opinion on like flooring, right? As another really big ticket item. What's the savings kind of cost or consideration when it comes to floors?
So floors, one, most people think floors are easy, right? It's like you just lay down floors and then you're done. I'm like, well, it's not so much like that because there's a lot of floating involved. There's always floating with floors. Two, you have to make sure that dries properly and there isn't like any moisture situations if you have a slab. Two, when it comes to cost saving with floors, like the hot thing lately has been the vinyl floors, the vinyl planks. I've talked to several realtors about like at what price point can you use these vinyl planks, because you can get them for $2, maybe $3. They're pretty much indestructible, really easy to work with, but they, I think using them up to like $1 million home is the consensus that I've got. And, you know, using one of our suppliers or going to places like ProSource or I think Floor and Decor has some, and LL Floors, which is Lumber Liquidators, you know, kind of revamped. But just staying between like $2 and $3 a square foot, you can go up, like you can go to $5, $6, $7, but do you need to? Probably not.
Okay, no, that's awesome. And that's a good kind of ballpark there from your consensus with agents. So why is drywall so expensive? Like when you were talking about the plumbing earlier, like, I'm sorry, but I just always thought that's like, it's like a piece of sheet. You just put it up, you float, you tape it, you texture, you're done. Like, what don't I know about that?
Drywall is, so, okay, the trick is that it's hard to have a good drywaller, right? Like painters can do drywall, but to have somebody do like a level 5, even a level 4, a level 3, like having somebody do a really good job of drywall so that your walls aren't like peeling or cracking later. But just somebody who knows how to do it, that's why it's expensive, because they have to go get the sheets, then they have to go and hang them, they screw them all in, and it sounds simple, but it's just it takes so much time to like put 3 coats, like you have to float 3 coats, then you have to sand it, then you texture it. It's such a thing.
That's funny. Jennifer wrote, drywall is an art form, LOL, which I guess it is. And I just didn't have like an appreciation for what it is. So Heather wants to know, can you speak to the many types of exterior home materials like hardy plank, masonry, brick, and what is the best update for your money? Awesome question.
Yes, I love this question. You know, okay, so a lot of the newer homes have been putting you know, modern, like the wood accent pieces on the side of the home. They're straying away from, I guess you still see some stone and brick, but I feel like a lot of people are mixing it up with this like fresh, raw wood look. And one thing that nobody is thinking about is like, okay, how is that going to look in like 2 or 3 years when the homeowner has to restain it constantly? So I think it's really important, one, to consider the material, like get a material that you don't constantly have to restain over and over and over again every couple years. Don't do that to yourself. And then, I love brick. I love stone. I also love hardy board. I think hardy board's still rocking it. It's still doing its thing. Sometimes, we find ourselves if we're doing an add-on or like taking over decks and like making them part of their home, we don't necessarily add on hardy. We'll just match the siding that they have there. A lot of people have been doing that. But hardy's still a thing that we've been working with. I honestly can't say I'm as debriefed in specific materials as the rest of my team. But that's still what we're seeing.
I love it. Heather notes that a lot of the homes over in Miller, gosh, I'm sorry, don't
Miller.
Scold me for saying the wrong thing. Yeah, right, Miller, that they are kind of going through that. They need that exterior update. And yeah, Laz, you're right. Like these home reno shows always make it look so easy, the same way that, $1 million listing makes an agent's job look easy, right? And
Okay.
Ashley is here to say, no, that is not quite the case. How often do you see homeowners doing renovations, wanting to get mold or lead-based paint or any of the asbestos tests done? Does that ever cross your plate?
Yeah. So whenever we're doing condos, like there were some condos we were working on off of Spicewood Springs, and you always have to have an asbestos test whenever you submit for permits. And it's just most of the time the HOA or the association, the condo association will already have those tests done. In some cases they don't, like this client we were just working with. So they need to get that done. We always recommend it, if they have, depending on when the home was built and if they have popcorn ceilings, we always make people aware of that. We have a list of companies that we like working with who can come out and do that test super quickly and do it well. And then we are actually certified to do lead tests. So we do that before we demo. We'll come out and do a lead test and make sure before we get into anything that there isn't lead.
Yeah, that's awesome. Megan wants to know, for your make-ready clients, is there a new trend in paint colors that you would recommend?
Yes, we've been seeing a lot of different whites, and I can actually send y'all a list of the whites that we've been using. I can't remember the exact names off the top of my head, but a ton of whites.
Yes,
people
white on white. Yes,
Yes.
Especially for a make-ready. Then let them come in and add pops of color, wallpaper if they want. So Ashley, I'm adding a list of whites, and then also it was the same-day permit stuff. So you mentioned that. So as a follow-up to all of our participants, just send that over to me, and we'll make sure that we get that over to all of you guys too. And then, so back to make ready. If a client is willing to do 2 or 3 things, okay, in addition to paint, what do you recommend?
As far as using us?
Yeah. If they're all right, I've got a little bit of a budget. Let's go ahead and do some stuff to get this ready for market. Yes, we'll paint it, and we've got room for a couple more things. What are some of the typically more common things that they're doing?
We've seen landscaping, just basic landscaping. Definitely paint. We see, I know I said this earlier, but we see just deferred maintenance things, like caulking of the tubs that is a tiny little thing, but it's actually really difficult to get clear caulk lines. I've practiced for many years, and it still looks like a show. But caulking, always bathtubs, cleaning things up. There's typically maybe some wood rot here or there we might need to take care of. There's some drywall patches, floating of areas, and maybe just some taking down of miscellaneous things in the laundry room or whatever. That's what we see a lot of as far as make ready goes. Sometimes you can get carried as you get into further things. If it's not as simple and straightforward as just these items, you know, we'll like bona the floors and like make sure the hardwoods look good. We'll rub oil on the cabinets or do some touch up there. We might install cabinet hardware on the cabinets if it doesn't have any. Just little things like that help a lot.
Yeah, but it's those little things though that like make a difference. Like even just the fact that you guys will do things like change out hardware, because it's really hard sometimes just to find a contractor to come out when all you need someone to do is change some knobs and, you know, oil the floors or this. So that's super great. And I love that y'all are really a one-stop shop in landscaping. Yes. Obviously, if you've got some little cracks in the ceiling from shifting or foundation things, getting those kind of taped up and floated. And then before you do the repaint, just makes the world of difference. Small investment there that really pays off. Mm-hmm. Ashley, you are a wealth of knowledge. We love our partnership with you. Guys, I say this always when I'm talking about Ashley and Simply Sold. The way that we even got introduced was because on Platinum Top 50's applications, I kept seeing the name Simply Sold as a business referral that agents were telling us we needed to get in touch with. And so I know that she works with tons of Platinum Top 50 agents for makerage, for remodels, the whole gamut. And you can see, you know, the person behind the business. She's one phone call away and she has a fantastic team and a real commitment to service for you and the agents. I know that for a fact. There was one time we were together and an agent called her at like 6 p.m. and needed a house painted the next day before it closed. And like she had her painters out there at like 4 a.m. to get that done. So Ashley, thanks just for the great service you provide. It really is a pleasure to be in business with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for listening. And I promise I'm here for you. If you have more questions, don't feel like you're a bother. Like I said, I really enjoy helping you guys out. So, or your clients, you know, it's my business. It's what I know a lot about. And don't be shy. I would love to meet all of you. I just did a call yesterday with a new realtor for like 15, 20 minutes. And she was like, I just want to get to know you. So I know you before I refer clients. So I can text you and be like, hey, what about this or that? So don't be a stranger. Come talk to me. I'm here to help.
I love it. We will also include your contact information in the email that we send over to the agents too. And guys, if you are out and about and it's a week, a month, 2 months from now, and you're like, oh my gosh, what was the name of the girl or that company? Just know you can also go to the Platinum Top 50 website and connect with Ashley through that avenue. So it's always just one click away through our website also. So thank y'all so much. Ashley, thank you for sharing with us this morning. It was a great presentation. We appreciate the partnership and all the agents that joined us for the call. So you guys make it a great day and hopefully we'll see y'all soon.
Bye.
Bye. Adios.